We have a very diverse panel here today, really incorporating all aspects of finance and investments and trade between the two countries. It's a hot topic. It's a very attractive market. It's a relationship that, while has been ongoing, has enormous potential to scale. What are the different aspects? Of course, we're going to be talking about fintech and digitization, but beyond that, what are the various aspects of finance that we can explore? I want to start off by really getting everyone to introduce themselves for a moment. Karan, let me begin with you.
Hi, my name is Kanav Monga. I'm the managing director of Virgo Corporation. We've been associated with India-Japan business for the last 4 decades now. One of our first businesses was in the space of telecom way back in the early 90s. Thanks.
Good day, everyone. My name is Takashi Suzuki. I'm Chief Director General of Jetro, Japan External Trade Organization. We are a Japanese government organization which is promoting any business between India and Japan. Nice meeting you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Mayur Shah. Don't ask me why. I ended up writing my thesis in Japanese, and since then 25 years on the Indo-Japan space. I represent a Japanese venture capital fund called Beyond Next Ventures. We have $220 million asset under management, and we have been actively investing in Indian startup ecosystem and look forward to your deliberation today.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Kenta Yoshida, just call me Ken, and representing MUFG Ganesha fund. MUFG is one of the largest Japanese bank, and we just set up a new fund here that is the 300 million investment only for India startups. Yeah, and I'm a part of sourcing team. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Toshihiko. I am a chief representative of JBIC's New Delhi office. Japan Bank for International Cooperation is a government-based, policy-based financial institution. We are a sister institution to JICA, but we are more commercial-based, PPP, public-private partnership-oriented institution. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, gentlemen. Kanav, let me start off with you, because we were talking about the various opportunities for investment and really the points of attraction for Japanese investors into India. What have been the kind of elements that they look forward to? How robust has been the environment? What have we seen so far, and why is the time so ripe now?
So in the finance sector, I think India and Japan relationship, the watershed moment is yet to come. There are steps in the right direction. India and Japan now have a financial dialogue at the highest level between the two governments to talk about financial collaboration. But I think the fundamental point here to note is that the current per capita GDP in India is at about $2,300. This is going to go up to approximately $3,200 by 24-25, as is projected internationally. And I think that is when India will truly become a consumer-centric economy. And that is when Japan will truly come on board, where they will make in India for India, see the market opportunity here, and that will leapfrog Japanese really making in India for the world. So I think the next couple of years in terms of financial collaboration is really the key area for India and Japan.
Kenta, would you like to come in there as well and talk a little bit about the kind of opportunities that you're seeing and what you feel the environment is looking like, why it's conducive at the moment to attract further investment?
Yeah, it was just yesterday's Nikkei news saying that this second quarter, Japan's the income from abroad is surpass 50 trillion Japanese yen. And it's also saying that these 10 years, it's increasing almost 3 times. And now it's almost 10% of the Japanese total GDP is those Japanese companies abroad, the dividend or interest into Japan. So that means Japan is really depend on those Japanese business overseas, and they are always looking for the opportunity in overseas market. And of course, India is such the big country, big market, and big business opportunity. They are really thinking about what to do in the Indian market. So of course, this financial service is one of the most key role to support those Japanese business activity in India. But on the other hand, I have to say that the perception from Japanese business to India business is not so much, how can I say, enough. They should know more about India, and maybe India should know more about Japan. And yeah, this event itself is 70th anniversary for two countries' friendship. And of course, we have the Maruti, Suzuki. They are, this year is 40th anniversary for their, launching the joint venture. It is one of the most successful joint venture between Japan and India, Maruti, Suzuki. But still, I have to say, those are the mindset of Japanese companies towards Indian business has to be diversified or updated. And only the solution, actually, it was already discussed in the previous session, the people-to-people exchange. And it could be a students or young generation exchange or even the researcher exchange. Japanese companies in India now are 1,400. But in China, there are more than 13 to 15,000 Japanese companies in China. And Japanese nationals in US, more than 4 lakh Japanese nationals are in US. And almost 1 lakh Japanese in China. But in India, only 9,000 Japanese. I am one of them. And yeah, Indian nationals in Japan, they are now 36,000. But we have Chinese in Japan, more than 8 lakh Chinese people. And even Nepalese, almost 1 lakh. So I have to say we have such a small basis for mutual understanding and communication. So this is why Jetro is the trade and investment promotion organization. But now we diversify the focus more into the people-to-people exchange or even the core research project between two countries, institutional exchange or the corporate institution exchange. This is one thing. And of course, there are more reasons, of course, for kind of the stagnation of the business relation between two countries. I hesitate to say, but to mention a kind of protectionism of Indian trade policy, which sometimes disturb those newcomers to India. And most of the case, they are the SMEs. Because those Japanese SMEs would like to start their export business to Indian market, and after convincing themselves, they will invest in the production of factories. This is their, kind of the usual approach. But most of the case, they are facing the difficulty to export their products to India. This is one challenge. So ultimate challenge is how we can diversify Japanese business mindset. And of course, we would like to work on the Indian authorities to more the open trade for the Japanese newcomers. And that is my comment. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. Toshihiko, can I come to you on what you feel are going to be some of the areas specifically when it comes to finance, digitization, and other opportunities?
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. I would like to introduce JBIC's role and functions to expedite Japanese business potentially here in India. Actually, India, through our annual survey, JBIC has already conducted the 34th annual survey for Japanese manufacturing companies very recently. And the result is very encouraging for India, that India was just promoted to the #1 targeted promising country all over the world for Japanese manufacturing companies. That would be very encouraging for us to support the Japanese business to come into this market. And then JBIC has mobilized actually 8.5 billions for India since COVID first wave. And then our financing mainly targeted to the Indians PSUs to expedite, even indirectly, for Japanese companies to work with such PSUs or Indian banks and companies. But from now on, this year, we've seen a lot of missions and research people and then business people to come to India. We are very busy, as Suzuki-san and Kanav-san. Everyone is now busy to receive such missions from Japan all over India. That would be very nice to have. Then the potential areas for us to work with India is very broad, but I would name something very particular. One is waste to energy. Japan has excellent technology to gather such urban waste or even agriculture waste to change them into the energy. And then semiconductor is very ambitious area for India now, but Japanese companies has excellent semiconductor manufacturing machinery to support the India to manufacture domestic semiconductor, which is now going on. And JBK invested NICDC, as Bharat Joshi mentioned, National Industrial Korea Development Corporation's number one industry city, Dorera Industry City in Gujarat, has just signed a MOU with Vedanta and the Foxconn's joint venturing companies to start the initiative. This is very epoch-making. And the other thing is, of course, EV battery business is another opportunity for Japanese companies to support and contribute for the less carbon community and then society in India. Finally, I would also name the hydrogen business, which India has established national hydrogen policy. Japan has excellent technology in this hydrogen business, which we would collaborate between the two countries to boost the less carbon economy further. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayur, do you want to jump in there?
Yeah, I mean, the question is that why the potential is not reached. But first of all, it might be good to recollect where we stand today. In the morning, Mr. Chengappa mentioned that Japan is already the third largest FDI provider to India. If you look at number 1 and 2, they are Mauritius and Singapore, which are usually a pass-through destination. And if you go back from the data, or DIPP data, from 2000 to 2020, even there you'll find Japan most probably in the top 3, mostly third only. Even some of the Singapore investment also gets diverted from Japan. So it's not that Japan is not doing. Consistently, there is a flow. Predominantly, this flow, 70% of it goes into Make in India activity. And that also explains why during COVID time, the investment was low, because service industry was growing much faster. Japan is also the only country where cutting across the straight ideology, as our Honorable Minister had mentioned in the morning, Japan is the only country where you have a dedicated industrial townships, 12 of them in 8 states, starting with Gujarat to Rajasthan to all the way to Tamil Nadu, Karnataka and in between. Japan also has participated not only on the Shinkansen, on the DFC kind of project, but is also helping a lot on the skill development. So when I see in my 25 years of journey, I feel Japan is actually even not so visible on the brand level, but it's already very much integrated. Now, 2 points that comes out from what Suzuki-san said and Kurihara-san mentioned, what holds for the future. The very important Nikkei news of yesterday, which mentioned that the global income is now becoming one of the significant part for Japanese economy as well. From a macroeconomic perspective, Japan still continues to need at least 8 to 9% of foreign exchange earnings going forward for their own economic benefit, and nobody kind of disputes that India has that potential. How we achieve that is the question to be asked. And the second point Kurihara-san mentioned, and I really love the JVIC survey. It is a very exhaustive survey that is undertaken every year when they ask Japanese companies question, what do they feel about the investment environment in particular country. Now, India has been consistently either number 1 or number 2, and again it has become number 1 on the long-term horizon. So if you open any company's annual report at this point, they would mention in the medium to long term, we would love to go to India. But that doesn't convert into investment. What converts into investment is the immediate interest in the market. And that's where I was very stunned to read this 34th survey, because in 2012, only 22% of companies had answered that they'll be interested in current Indian size of the market. Now it has gone to 47%. So there is a kind of potential interest as well that is growing up, and that probably augurs well, which will also bring into more investment. Thank you.
Kenta, let me come to you now on this opportunities in the startup space, really, and the kind of, we've seen a lot of challenges, but we've also seen a lot of opportunity when it comes to that segment. What are you looking for specifically now? Are there particular sectors, segments, that you've dissected or that you feel are more attractive?
Okay, so before going to the sector, let me, how can I say, recap, why India is ready for startups investment. And I don't have to repeat the India story, the populations, young generations, and also a huge consumption, so everyone understands already. And in addition to that, we have India stack, so we are ready for digital infrastructure. So we have seen many consumption growth in Japan, which happens in 1970s, 80s, and China, Korea, Southeast Asia. But in India, that is happening right now with the digital infrastructure. That makes a big difference, in other countries. And plus, everyone knows that India is the third largest startups investment country. So if you see the quality of startups, I'm so satisfied. Quality is so good. And having said that, this year is making India more attractive because if you see the stock market, that is we are seeing market corrections. The unprofitable tech companies lost 70% market cap in this year, but that is great for to investment. I mean, that is a worst moment for exit, but great for investment. And so I would say this year is in buyer's market in India. And that creates, for example, if you see the valuation, of course, we can invest in the better price, of course. And plus, the startups who can raise this year is already screened. So you don't have to check, because, if they can raise this year, that's always, make a significance. Great. And plus, as we know, the FTX, we know, we have to spend more time for DD. So, DD's quality is getting better. The last year, it was just a quick DD, but this year, we can spend more time for DD, more careful DD, I would say. And plus, longer duration for fundraising. So, as we know, Japanese companies sometimes take time to make a decision, so that, we have to miss, some opportunities last year. But this year, we can spend more time, usually 2 months, 3 months. Last year, it was just 4 weeks. So those, how can I say, changes makes, India more attractive. And having said that, my focus is consumption. And repeating about consumption with digital infrastructure. That happens in, for example, consumer finance. We just invested Crutchby, which is the P-loan, digital lender, but we are seeing many growth in the consumption. That happens unsecured loan, P-loans, auto loans, mortgage loans, many things are happening. So yeah, so that's the sector we are focusing right now. Thank you.
Mayur, the market has really been changing. So what are your insights as well?
Yeah, thank you very much. We are a Japan-based venture capital fund, and typical business is to invest and divest. But when we consciously looked at India, we thought beyond that, what can we do? And the hypothesis that we entered into is that typically, when you compare India and Japan, then the analogy used is software and hardware. What we thought probably we can do is, we can look at the engagement in a different way. So we coined a new hypothesis saying idea into scale. Now, why do I say this? Because India is the cusp of disruptions where everyday open innovation is disrupting a lot of industries, creating newer market, and in turn creates opportunity also for the Japanese companies in India. For the problems that we have in front of us, And it is actually a very interesting time in India's history at this point, and it reminds me my days when I was writing my thesis in Japan. And current phase in India is very similar to early stage of Japanese high economic growth. And I'll tell you what exactly was that. That whenever problem is seen, then people then in Japan and young people now in India don't leave it to government or large corporate to solve them. They want to solve it by themselves. They want to make a business out of it. And giving the demographics advantage that India has, this is going to continue for long. Now, how Japan fits into this play? Now, we know that when it comes to manufacturing, and it's not just like, producing hardware, but minute planning, which we heard in the first session in the morning as well with, Toshiba, NEC, Mitsui, the Bharat deliberation. So that is something that can help Indian startup immensely. And that collaboration can actually take Indian startup to global level, or Japanese company can leverage their network to bring it that solution to even enhance their offering into India. Typically, we are focusing on 3 sectors. Climate change, we feel, is going to be a major theme going forward, which affects not only on the mobility, but also in the agriculture side of it. The health tech, introduction of UHI is going to be a game changer, and we feel from nutrition to insurance, and the young demographics and how India provides healthcare will create a newer opportunity, open innovation for investment. And the third one is the digital infrastructure. How do you reach out to the consumer? Because that is one area that Japanese companies have not been able to crack it. So if we can find innovative solutions and those startups and can leverage for some of the Japanese companies, that will be great for us. Thank you.
Kanav, do you want to jump in? You had some interesting thoughts earlier as well as to how the CBDC would play into all of this.
Yeah, I think India and Japan are natural partners, and financial sector is one area that they have been lacking as far as collaboration is concerned. But the one area that I feel there is tremendous potential is the central bank digital currency. The government of India, Reserve Bank of India, has already announced the digital rupee. They've already taken on board 3 private sector banks. They are moving full blown as far as pilot scale CBDCs are concerned. Japan, on the other hand, has also announced a digital yen to be launched by 2026. They've got 3 banks on board to do that. I think if India and Japan can really collaborate, which is a new area coming up in the world, currently Singapore is the innovation hub as far as CBDCs are concerned. I think this is one area with the financial wherewithal that Japan presents, and the India innovation that we have. India currently is ranked 42nd on the Global Innovation Index. We were ranked as low as 80 in 2015. So we've really come a long way as far as innovation is concerned. Japanese companies per se are not considered to be the most innovative as far as new technologies are concerned. And I think if both the countries really partner on specific areas in the financial sector, there is a tremendous opportunity that they both can address. One other point that I want to mention in terms of financial wherewithal that a lot of us don't know here in India is in Japan, in the top 100 companies listed on the stock exchange in Tokyo, 20% of their equity is lying in cash on their books of accounts. That's the wherewithal that the Japanese have in terms of financial sector. And I think with India expected to be rising as far as the per capita GDP is concerned, there is just an unbelievable amount of opportunity that we all in this room perhaps can look at in terms of financial sector collaboration. One other point that I want to mention historically here is that if you look at the 1980s and how Japan and the US collaborated in the financial sector, at that point, Sumitomo Bank actually went and invested $500 million in Goldman Sachs and actually went up to own 12% of that investment bank. That was the one watershed moment as far as collaboration between Japan and the US was concerned. If we can actually clinch some kind of a watershed moment, Japan as businesses are known to follow each other. And that one moment will actually create the Maruti Suzuki opportunity that they created in the auto sector, in the financial sector going forward.
Takashi, when it comes to outward FDI as well, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, outward FDI from India to Japan. Yeah, and yeah, of course, the digitization in Japan is already mentioned, but still we need more digital transformation in our domestic industry or society, and we are super aging society, so healthcare or elderly care, any social care related service from India must be the huge opportunity. And also, the Kurihara-san mentioned about the hydrogen or renewable energies. There are, the huge company like Adani or Reliance. They are making trillions of rupees investment already. And I think those are the big names. The Japanese corporate can have the kind of the joint project, and maybe they can take them to Japan. Because recently we see some the hydrogen projects in Japan, so there must be the opportunity. And of course, the semiconductor is one of the most interesting the items for the future collaboration of the business or industry. The Vedanta, somebody already mentioned, they visited 2 weeks ago to Japan, and they made lots of discussion with those Japanese corporates, and they are really committed. And yeah, we have a good machinery company in Japan, or actually we are facing the shortage of those semiconductor talents. So I think that this kind of the collaboration between India and Japan also can happen. But I dare to introduce a rather negative or the kind of the bad aspect of our current relation between India and Japan. Recently, my colleague in the office working on the survey on global R&D between India and other countries. And still this analysis is going on, but I'd like to introduce a tentative result in IoT fields. And we surveyed numbers and players of core research papers and core patent application. The result is 34% of the total is between India and Europe, and 28% India and China. It's a bit surprising. And 24% for India and US, 12% is for India, Korea. And guess, what about India, Japan? Only 2%. And yeah, these patents, and the interesting thing is that these patents made between India and other countries is mostly registered in Europe, US, Korea, not India. So this may mean those other countries than Japan take advantage of Indian research capability for their own domestic market or own business in their country. So I think this kind of the global trend, the Japanese company, now we should follow. And yeah, we have the mega banks, which has a huge network with those Japanese companies or SMEs. I'd like those the financial institute to work on those Japanese companies to understand how those other countries are using India for their global business. This is my comment. Thank you.
Kanav, I think you have a point to add.
So, Kurihara-san and Suzuki-san both mentioned about semiconductor and hydrogen as the next potential partnership between the two countries. I think the fundamental challenge here in India is that there is a dearth of private sector capital. And when we talk about projects such as the big semiconductor project announced by Vedanta, or even green hydrogen projects being created in India, the fundamental challenge here in India that we face as private sector enterprises is availability of capital. Now, if you look at hydrogen, the Japanese for certain have the technology to produce that. But in production of hydrogen, one of the most critical components is land. You need to store that green hydrogen that you've created somewhere. India can certainly offer that. But the fundamental challenge again is capital. Where is the capital to create these large-scale projects in India? And this is where I think this topic is very interesting, of financial sector collaboration, where Japan can really hold India's hand in availability of that capital for these large-scale next-generation projects. And the same thing currently, Vedanta, it's out in the news, has already made a public announcement about dearth of capital or dearth of belief in the project here in India. So this is again where if Japan can really handhold India and provide that private sector capital, the potential is tremendous between the two countries.
I think the question was outward investment as well, right? The first part. Well, I think Suzuki-san was so right, and so was Kanav-san about the deliberation. Few of the examples in the startup space, or at least unicorn space that we know. So one of the most unsung heroes of India in the unicorn, Zoho, is actually one of the big brands in Japan. You can see their advertisement everywhere. Lenskart purchased Owndays, which is one of the most sophisticated and very popular eyewear brands there. There is a grey orange that Mitsubishi Corporation took it to Japan. But I have one personal example. One of our portfolio company, two young folks from Rajasthan who developed a solution. It was completely they were from the Rajsamand area. The solution that they developed would help conserve water for the agriculture. The company is now based out of Okinawa and now selling to 8 countries. And in Japan, this is considered to be one of the biggest circular economy product, because they are solving the problem of raw waste, converting into 100% biodegradable material, and then they are converting the polymers out of it, which is again conserving the water. So this is one of the example where I feel, when I look at the true potential of India, and when I see any problems in India, and when the young people's light shine up saying, oh, here's an opportunity, probably as a VC, we can try to see if this can have a global scale. And if there is something with Japan that we can do, probably would love to do. Maybe same with Yoshida-san in his investment at Mitsubishi. They have a largely huge fund of 300 million. Probably they'll also have the similar ideas.
Yeah, thanks so much. As a bank, we have strong relationship with many Japanese, of course, Indian companies in India. And we usually connect startups with companies here. And for example, we execute MOU with Maruti Suzuki and MUFG and plus MUFG, which is a startup company. So we are happy to connect with the big companies plus startups. And in addition to that, what I see in the market, is usually, for example, let's take fintech. When the fintech get certain level of growth, they want to go outside. Usually, they want to go to Southeast Asia or MENA, Middle East, North Africa. And as a uniqueness of MUFG, we have 4 partner banks in the region: Thailand, Indonesia, Philippines, Vietnam. So when the startups want to go outside, we can connect. Actually, we are connecting those companies. And plus, like India Stack, UPI, India is exporting the system to outside. Similarly, it's not have to be FDI. You can just export technologies, which is great. To outside India, Japan happy to accept. Plus, Southeast Asia, they are also looking for those great digital infrastructure. Yeah, thank you.
Toshihiko, would you like to come in as well on the kind of challenges you perhaps see in this space?
Sure. So I would like to speak a little bit from the government to government perspective. Of course, as a panelist just mentioned, the most Japanese companies are prepared to seek more in India. But the opportunities and the situations vary. And then some companies already invested billions of dollars level already. But some companies are more sort of willing to start small. And as Lisa mentioned, some India's big houses like Adani or Reliance or Tata would like to see the very ambitious project from scratch, and then sometimes request and okay, please bring your technologies and expertise, experience with your funding, equity funding, to form the joint venturing. So start big. Then some companies might have struggles to persuade the Tokyo's headquarters to start big. Then how to fill the gap is something what JBIC is discussing with Indian government. And then what we have we are initiating is to form the joint venturing fund between the Indian government and Japanese government. We just signed the MOU with NIIF, National Investment infrastructure investment fund under Indian government to form joint venturing fund to inject our equity financing to the very ambitious and potential projects in India to bring Japanese technologies, experiences, expertise. Then we would realize that such Japanese private companies would bring some of the technologies without much capital funding. And then India-Japan Fund between JBIC and NIIF would bring the equity financing to that ambitious project. Such supplemental sort of actions is particularly necessary for Japanese industry because apart from Western companies or some other US companies, as I said, some Japanese company would need some time to accumulate the confidence to invest more. So we would like to fill the gap, and we would like to continue that actions through this G2G sort of initiative.
Okay, I think you've all covered a whole variety of points, but if we were to just summarize and perhaps get a closing comment from all of you, I think that would be great. Kanav, let me go to you first.
So, Kurihara-san mentioned about JBIC's collaboration with NIIF. Now, this is one of those areas that can really be path-breaking with India's plan for the Gati Shakti program of building infrastructure for the truly make in India. And every time there is an issue as far as gathering equity is concerned or secured debt is concerned. So I think Japan has started thinking on those lines now. The collaboration is working, steps have been taken in the right direction. I personally feel that the next couple of years are really going to be path-breaking as far as Japan-India is concerned. Japan has certainly realized that India is the true opportunity as far as the global stage is concerned. The world is facing geopolitical challenges, and no better reliable partners than India and Japan to really leapfrog the rest of the world and address the opportunity that presents itself in front of us right now. Thanks.
Takashi?
It must be the kind of the closing comment, but now I would like to raise the topic, the Japanese SMEs. We have more than 1,400 Japanese companies already in India, but guess what about the Japanese SMEs among those 1,400 Japanese companies? Only 20% are the SMEs. But if we see those are Japanese companies in China or Japanese companies in ASEAN, more than half of them are Japanese SMEs. Actually, this is a very unique point of the Japanese business in India. And Kurihara-san already mentioned about JBIC's, the mindset. And the Jetro is now really concerned how we can promote more Japanese SMEs to come to India. And we tried for a decade, but it's not so much successful. But recently, I see the company like Vedanta, they, before COVID time, 2017 or 18, they acquire one Japanese small-sized company which is making a smartphone, the glass. And according to the MD of Vedanta, he told me that it was a sick Japanese SME. But the technology was good, and they decided to acquire that company. It's really strategic. And I know this is a bit controversial. The Japanese government organization, Jetro, is saying the companies should acquire the Japanese SMEs, but might be the good idea to regard such kind of the activity as a part of the collaboration. So we also see that type of, the Indian companies invest in Japan, type of the business can be one kind of the kickoff of the increase of the business relation. Thank you.
Mayur, what are you looking forward to the most in the next phase of this collaboration?
I'll just take the baton from him on the SME side of it because since 2006, I had a front row seat seeing 200 companies from Japan investing in India to rise to 1,500. In fact, to be honest, I have moved past SME now, honestly, in my assessment. The opportunity actually now lies, and it's very interesting to know that Japan has now got a minister in charge of startups. The impetus that Japan is also putting, And then there is another aspect to Japan, as he mentioned the Vedanta experience. It's highly innovative country. Even if it's a stagflation, innovation never stopped in Japan. So there are lots of companies that are sitting on piles of patents and intellectual property, which Japanese government is now making open for the startups to use. And that's where we see a great opportunity for us. Where do we see it? We have a very healthy portfolio of these deep tech companies in Japan. And I'm selectively picking few of them to make India as their base for global expansion. Especially, let's say, if in the field of semiconductor. Now, one startup company that we have in portfolio that can reduce the water requirement by 95%. It is coming with a totally new technology. So there is a zero hazardous, the leftovers part of it. And as you see the Apples of the world, as they are expanding their footprint in India, they are also trying to reduce the carbon footprint on their way, even for the automotive industry, whereby 2050 globally and 2070 within India, they have to reduce carbon footprint completely. This kind of newer technology, spurred by this intellectual property that was created in University of Tokyo, can give a great impetus to India. So we feel that going forward, it will be interesting to even bet on the younger Japanese people who have the global ambition and try to see if they can make India as their base for global footprint. Thank you.
Go for it. Younger is right, especially when we're talking about all these startups and digitization.
Yeah, so let me try to touch on some global perspectives, especially when I explain executives when we launched Ganesha Fund. And as MUFG, we just divested the retail finance in the US, North America. We just sold Union Bank, Mitsubishi MUFG Union Bank. And we just got 80 billion US dollars as a cash. And we divest from North America, and we want to invest more in Asia. So what this means? So if you see the global map, and if you highlight, the countries with, growing populations or GDP, growth, and many countries, around in the oceans. So this is just my opinion, but, maybe last decade or 2 decades was, the ages of Pan-Pacific, North America, East Asia, Japan. But this age, or maybe half century, if you see those countries, that is of course India, South Asia, plus Southeast Asia and Africa. Those are the regions, areas growing. So that is across Pan in the oceans. So I think the focus or shift is happening from the Pan-Pacific to Pan in the ocean. That is my opinions. And of course, I don't have to explain, but India can be the center for those global expansion. You can go to Southeast Asia, of course, Africa, and that is my sense. And just quickly, as for the difficulties of the Japanese companies of FDI, and usually, Japanese companies have, regional headquarters in Singapore, or, global headquarters in Tokyo. But I think, they cannot, understand what is going on, what is happening in India. And usually, they have some, how can I say, misperceptions, or, maybe they visit India 10 years ago, 20 years ago, they don't know, what is happening right now. So, for example, in MUFG, every month, one chief executive is visiting India. And we are showing around, this is India. Now, this is how we consume, this is how we pay. So that is quite key. As long as headquarters existing in Tokyo, Singapore, they cannot understand, so they have to come. And plus, this will be the ages of India, Pan-Pacific, Pan-India Ocean. So even the regional headquarters should come to India. So that is my sense on the closing box. Thank you.
Fantastic. Toshihiko, your closing comments, and also in terms of policy signals or anything else that you would like to see to make things more conducive for further investment cooperation.
Thank you. I have only a few to say. First, as Suzuki introduced the fact India has only 9,000 residence experts only. And then we have to expedite more sort of down-to-earth discussion, interaction between Indian business people and Japanese business people. So we would appreciate for more Indian business leaders to come to Japan. Almost Japanese COVID is over, and India is already over. So as many Japanese business people are visiting to India. We would like to expedite such interactions further. So we all five sort of should be the window for such discussion to start the relations between the two countries. And we've seen the many competitors from all over the world. Of course, sometimes the collaborators, but sometimes competitors from all over the world. The US and the European countries are more aggressive. They've already invested in India more. And then even after, in the midst of the COVID, the stock price of India had emerged from the bottom. And then it is high time for Japanese companies to catch up with this trend. And then we welcome any contact from any Indian business people to have any small discussion to find any rooms to start our economic relations. Thank you.
Thank you so much, all of you, for sharing your thoughts today, and lots of deep insights, which I'm sure we'll see taken forward as we go along and extend this partnership. Could I invite on stage Mr. Chandrasekhar Sibal, Head of Division Medical, to offer a token of appreciation to our panelists today. Of course, Mr. Sibal is from Fujifilm. Yeah, there he is. Thanks so much, and thank you. A big round of applause to our panelists, please.
If you like the video, do like, comment, share and subscribe.